Hi, I'm Sean Carlock. Welcome to Send It 25. Today we've got a couple of cold bore shooting long range tips for you, all about making that first shot count. We've got one tip for elevation and one tip for windage. So let's get right into those. Okay, what we're testing for here today is cold bore shot velocity variations. Many guns, not all, but many guns, the first shot will be slower than subsequent shots. And this happens fairly often, and it's not huge. Sometimes it's only 10 feet a second, sometimes it's 30, 40 feet a second. It just depends on what it is, but you need to be prepared for it, and you have to do a little testing. My test is simple. I'll shoot three-shot groups from a cold barrel. So we'll shoot 3 shots here from a cold barrel. I'll shoot some later this afternoon. I'll give it 2 or 3 hours at least to get completely down to ambient temperature. And it's only 35 degrees outside right now, so that's a perfect time to test this. And then go on through and shoot the third group, and we'll see very specific things. The most likely thing you see is that first shot is slower to some degree than the rest. The first 3 shots, the first shot from each of the 3 groups, will usually be a really great ES, but substantially lower than the other groups, or the other shots in the groups. So we'll take those first 3 shots, they'll all be pretty tight, and all the rest of the shots will be pretty tight in terms of ES. But we definitely have 2 different ballistic curves to work with when we get out to big distance. Now, if we're talking 1,000 yards and in, most guns don't exhibit enough difference to really worry about. We get beyond 1,000 yards, start stretching out to big distance, boy, then we have to pay attention to it. And our cure to that is pretty simple. I simply make 2 different ballistic curves, and I name one of them 338 Terminator cold bore, and the other one 338 Terminator. So when I'm out hunting, I pull up the cold bore shot. And it's not very often that I even have to fire a second shot. It's been years since I fired a second shot. And because we take shots that we know we're going to make, high percentage shots. So we run off that cold bore program, and I can flip back and forth between the 2 of them really quick before I shoot, knowing that if I have to take that second shot, even if there's a correction involved, then okay, boy, I needed to be a minute higher, but I also need to back off a half a minute because I'm shooting from a warm bore now. You can do that pretty quick. And if I'm going to be in that situation, I always make that calculation ahead of time before I fire that first shot, so that I simply know, hey, whatever I have to do here, I have to subtract half a minute from my elevation off what the cold bore program is. So if I have to make that correction, I can add that half a minute into it and make a good correction and take off from there. So we'll go ahead and get to testing here, and I'll show you how we do this, and we'll see how it pans out. Okay, so here's our results. We shot 3 3-shot groups, and as you can see, the first round in each group was substantially lower than the rest, to the tune of an average of about 20 feet a second. Our ES on the first shot was 5 feet a second. Our ES for the second and third shots all put together was 7 feet a second. Either one of these are really great. We've got 20 feet a second differential in the cold bore velocity. Very simple to correct for, and we've already talked about that, but you have to put in the time and do this testing. It doesn't take long, but you want to know it before you need it. Okay, now that we've gotten our elevation tip all squared away and we're headed down that road correctly, let's talk about our windage tip for the day. Now in windage, here's a very common scenario, especially when people are first getting started into competition, into long range shooting, into field shooting. Being short on windage. And the problem with being short on windage is they make one correction, they get on target, they go, oh, well, I was just off in my estimation of what the windage was. That's true and it's not true. So when you're talking about your windage and you get out your Kestrel and you take the windage right where you're standing and it's 5 miles an hour and you're shooting across a flat bean field. There's no terrain features, there's nothing to be in your way, but we're shooting big distance. Let's say we're shooting 1,600 yards or further. The bullet rises far enough above the ground that the airspeed up where the bullet is quite a bit faster than the airspeed down where you took it in your Kestrel. The higher you go, the faster the air tends to go. And we'll show you an example of this here with the Kestrel in just a few minutes. But this is why when you go to a good PRS shoot or a long-range field shoot of any kind, at the end of the day, there will be a hole chewed out in the dirt on the short side of the windage. If the wind's coming from the left and blowing to the right, there will be a hole torn up on the right-hand side of the target where people didn't put enough left windage in to correct. Very, very few misses on the left. So guys that have been in the game a while call that the professional side of the target. Missing to the professional side doesn't happen very often. Missing on the amateur side is being short on windage, not taking these different things into account. We're going to show you some examples here. Okay, here's what I'm talking about. We're going to take a Kestrel reading right off the ground here, and our speed's 3.1, 2.7, 2.5, 2.5, 2.6. We're between 2.5 and 3 miles an hour. Okay, now I'm going to stand up and we'll get this right above at head height, just 4 or 5 feet above, okay? Now here we are, and I'm just 4 or 5 feet above where I was. I'm 4.5, 5.1, 4.3, 4. Okay, so that's one of my rules of thumb when I'm shooting across the canyon and I have big open air, or if I have to shoot a long shot where the bullet is way up in the air compared to where I'm taking the windage reading, I start with doubling it. Doubling it has been pretty good to me. Now obviously if we're only shooting 400 yards or something and the bullet is not getting that much higher than where you took your wind reading, then that's a different story. But when we have 18, 20 feet of maximum ordnance out there where the peak of the bullet's path is that high above where we read the wind, the airspeed is going to be faster up there. So just a tip, play with it and see.